Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We're your Cubs beat writers at The Athletic. And Patrick, we are now on YouTube. Not only are we these are the faces that Craig Counsell gets to stare at for over 300 times a summer. What a delight for the fans to experience this. I know you're all thrilled to see us now. To watch us discuss this Cubs offseason, and we have a mailbag to kick it off. Everyone's favorite.
Yeah, we love hearing from our listeners and readers, the positive and negative feedback, and a shout out to all of our friends at the Foul Territory Network behind the scenes. I mean, those people work like 24/7. They got like just an endless supply of shows that they got to get through, and they've been a big help on this here. So yes, it should be exciting. I think we'll have some more guests and stuff on the horizon as well. We're still figuring out some of the technology here, so just bear with us.
Yeah, if I screw up, don't yell at me. Don't be too angry. I'll try and get this right. If I forget, I'm on video and walk away to let my dogs out. Don't freak out. All right, Patrick, let's get right to the questions. First one is from E. Gauna. I put the Twitter names on here, so okay. I may screw these up. I know the Cardinals likely won't trade him within the division, but how have the Cubs missed out on Sonny Gray all these years? Seems like the perfect fit for Chicago. What do you think, Patrick?
I'll take the first half of this one. I know you have some thoughts on the second half. Our colleague at The Athletic, Katie Wu, who does a great job covering the Cardinals, has reported that Sonny Gray does not want to waive his no-trade clause, even as the Cardinals go through this rebuild, that he picked St. Louis for several reasons, close to home. He's, I believe, a Vanderbilt, Tennessee guy and wants to see it through, whatever is happening at Busch Stadium there. And this is a funny name. It kind of goes back to when the Cubs hired Derek Johnson, who's since gone on to become a well-regarded major league pitching coach, but he was a minor league, I believe, coordinator with the Cubs. He was very close with Jed, Theo, and Jason McLeod. And I feel like there was so little going on at the major league level, it became connecting the dots of, oh yeah, the Cubs are going to go after Sonny Gray. Like they've got his old pitching coach from Vanderbilt already working there. But as it turns out, maybe not the most perfect fit for Chicago.
Yeah, I don't want to label a guy like can't handle the big city, or you never know what's going on inside a guy's head. But Sonny Gray is unique. He's he likes his routine. He likes specific things. He likes to go about things in his own way, right? And that's fine. That's it's led to a really strong career. I think he'd be great for the Cubs. I'm not sure if he is the most comfortable in big cities. Now, his worst season, and it's not really close, was in his first full season with the Yankees. Just a really bad season. Didn't seem comfortable. Immediately left for Cincinnati and turned back into the pitcher. It maybe had his best season. It was almost immediate turnaround at the age of 29. And look at his career. Oakland, Yankees, right? And then Cincinnati, Minnesota, St. Louis. Those are smaller markets. It seems like he's more comfortable there. That's what he prefers. If that's what he prefers, that's great. That's where he'll thrive. He knows himself. He knows what he wants. I think he'd be. I agree with the ultimate point of he'd be a good fit for the Cubs. I think he's a good leader. I think he's a good pitcher. I just don't think he may be a great fit for Chicago. But ultimately, the point you were making that Katie Wu pointed out, it's moot. Like he's not coming here. First of all, he's not getting traded to the Cubs. St. Louis isn't doing that. Second of all, it doesn't sound like he's getting traded or wants to waive his no trade clause. I do think there'd be a pretty strong market for him if that were to change, but it doesn't sound like that's the case.
All right, Sahadev, Cubs fan number 2 wants to know, What are the organization's expectations for Pete Crow-Armstrong's bat heading into 2025? Steamer has him just below a league average hitter.
All right. I think that's probably the expectation, right? Like hovering around league average. Now that's probably like pushing 3 wins, if not more. I want to say so. His final 215 plate appearances. I brought this up. 123 weighted runs created plus. That is with his defense. My guess would that be around a 6 WAR player. Uh, like that's pretty elite. That like you're on the periphery of MVP talk if you're an elite center fielder with a 120 weighted runs created plus. You start doing better than that, and you're not just on the periphery. I don't think their expectation is for him to do what he did the final 2+ months. I think that was a great sign that, hey, this guy is figuring some things out. He's getting better. It's not remember the mess that he was for the first 2.5 months offensively, like to the point where when I talked to him, talk about him to people in the org, it was like very obvious. It's like I'd bring up the obvious point of like, he's chasing too much. Oh yeah, you think so? Like it was all very obvious, right? It wasn't like, what's going on with Pete Crow-Armstrong? How do we figure it out? He needed to stop chasing. The breaking balls in at his feet were like causing him fits. And he did. He figured it out. He stopped chasing as much. He stopped striking out as much. He started swinging at better pitches and hitting the ball harder. I actually think maybe that 123 weighted runs created plus was a little low, because I remember a lot of balls getting knocked down for him in at Wrigley. So I expect that he's going to have a really strong season. What is that? What does that end up being? Is that 100 weighted runs created plus, or 120 or 80? I think the expectation is around league average. That's what I think the Cubs realistically expect. What do they hope for? Obviously a lot more, right?
Yeah, we'll say. I think it will be fascinating to watch just how he comes into camp next year. Like, he impressed everyone with how he found a routine and took to coaching and assimilated into the clubhouse. And I'm not saying that won't continue, but we've all seen it happen before, right? The sophomore jinx, or whatever you want to call it. It's a hard league. You get a little success, maybe get a little comfortable. Not saying that's going to happen to PCA, but it's certainly something that I think that has to be on everyone's radar, while also leaving open the possibility, as you say, that maybe he just has this awesome off the charts seasons and the Cubs get that like 6 WAR player that they've been kind of pining for.
I love a great deal, but I'm not going to run sprints in the outfield just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. With Mint Mobile, it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan. Purchase and activation is super easy too.
To get started, go to mintmobile.com/territory. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number.
To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/territory. That's mintmobile.com/territory. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/territory.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on their first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
All right, Patrick. Why aren't the Cubs in on Garrett Crochet? Are they not interested? Do they not match up? Will the Sox not deal with their crosstown rival? This is from Jay Madden's Glasses.
Unless something dramatically has changed, I think we both heard like around the trade deadline and kind of entering the offseason that the Cubs have like no sort of expectations that the White Sox would deal Crochet to the north side. Is that kind of how that's the
I think
state of play?
I don't think they rule out trades with the Cubs. I think
Mm.
an established potential ace type player, like we could see smaller trades, maybe a challenge trade of some sort, like prospect for prospect to fill gaps. Um, I just don't see like impact player like Garrett Crochet being sent to the Cubs from the White Sox, the type of guy that could push their rotation from, good to great. I think that's bad business. I've talked to plenty of people around the league that don't like that concept. It's like, take the best deal. Who cares if you believe in your evaluation skills in your front office, like just take the deal. But I don't think it's like a Chris Getz thing as much as it may be an ownership thing.
Yeah.
This is always, we always run into this when talking about Cubs White Sox. I think the Cubs paid a premium to get Jose Quintana, right? This is just the reality of dealing with the White Sox when you're the Cubs. We heard rumblings about it, or our colleague Dan Hayes heard rumblings about it when the Twins and White Sox were talking trade, right? Like I think there's in division, and the White Sox are quirky like that. It's not rare. It happens, right? But the White Sox, I think, are a little extreme with it. I don't think the Mets and Yankees have that same issue. Not that they're making trades all the time or anything like that, but it's certainly it is an issue dealing within the city. And I don't think the White Sox wanted to deal a potential superstar like Crochet, who was looking like a Cy Young candidate before his innings kind of had to be ramped down. So I think it's as simple as that, right? Not that they aren't interested, not that they wouldn't be interested,
Yeah, our colleague at The Athletic, Will Salmon, had a good sort of explainer on what the White Sox are looking for. I mean, he covers the Mets. And what the Sox want is kind of what the Cubs have in terms of position players. They do have, the White Sox, for all of their faults, do have a nice pipeline of pitching, assuming guys stay healthy and continue to send. They need just everyday types to just clean up their offense and their defense. The Cubs have that. They will certainly be aware of what's going on because, as our buddy John Greenberg has explained, like Chris Getz and Jed Hoyer are friendly. They're neighbors. They're very likely to run into each other on a regular basis, whether it's kid stuff, errands, just about town, stuff like that. Like he'll be in the know, but I also think, as someone explained to me once, like it's also sometimes hard to do deals with people you are friendly with, and so we'll see. I would not be hoping for Garrett Crochet if you're a Cubs fan. At this point.
I mean, they match up perfectly. They match up so well.
Otherwise,
yeah. I mean, the Cubs have some things that like make a lot of sense to move at this point in time that the White Sox would love, like Kevin Alcantara, James Triantos, like so much. There's we could go on and on. Like I think it would make sense if they were the Angels or the Mariners or whatever instead of the White Sox. Would probably be hammering this, and it's just that's not the case. It's the reality of the situation. Is that my turn? No, your turn. Go ahead, Patrick.
All right, we got Cubes fan 1 wants to know.
Cubes, that's a throwback to the old Cubs Twitter.
Yeah.
Cubes win the World Series.
Are the Cubs feeling any pressure from a business ticketing perspective heading into the offseason?
That's Patrick. Maybe you can answer this one better than I. I mean, I think they're always feeling it. There was more to this question that I couldn't throw in because it went on too long. But he basically said his friends getting emails about single game tickets and like I think we've heard this through other fans, like they're getting more emails, getting contacted more about season tickets or individual plans. So marketing's ramping those things up. Is that a sign to you that there's pressure on that the business side is feeling pressure? I know you have some people there, and maybe you've heard some things.
Yeah, I think that pressure is always there, but it's not to a point where the Cubs are suddenly going to change their model and like Tom Ricketts is going to be telling Jed, go sign Juan Soto. Like if that's what the question's getting at.
Yeah.
I do think post 2016, like not having that 1908 just kind of lessened the, I don't know, the overall experience, the kind of unifying uh spirit of that. I think someone once said to me, like, the best and worst thing that could ever happen to the Cubs was winning the World Series, because it would just take away that idea of this is the last great quest in North American professional sports. Um but at the same time, I think if you look across, like, I don't know, the world, like, audiences are kind of splintering. Like, it's, harder to kind of um, to capture people's attention. Um, and look, like, any sort of slump is relative. When the Cubs drew almost 3 million fans for a team that was slightly over 500 and not all that compelling in any way. And you see that their business, like the baseball team, is almost ancillary at this point. You got Northwestern and Ohio State playing there the other day. I believe your Illini are coming in after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You got these concerts that I believe are just easy money makers for them, and so they'll continue to use Wrigley Field for all these different events to keep the business humming.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're short on money, but
Yeah.
and I think that they pushed 3 million again, right? In
Mm-hmm.
attendance, even with that team. Like, they're not struggling, but yeah, I think they want to break 3 million, right? That's when things are going well, when the Cubs are breaking 3 million. I'm not sure. I should do more research on that as far as post-pandemic attendance numbers, and if everything's back fully to normal across the game, or if there's just a natural depression there, and a small percentage of people still are hesitating to show up. I don't think that's the case. 2.7 or 8 million.
I think it was 2.9, and I mean we haven't even gotten. I mean we haven't even gotten into marquee and the future of, like, regional sports networks, which are sort of disappearing. Like, that's a whole nother thing where I think the Cubs are in better position than most teams, but marquee has not really reached their wildest hopes and dreams from when that was launched. So, it's a really kind of complicated, layered organization that clearly, has a lot of stuff to figure out. And I think that's part of why you look at the team that they're putting together. Like, ownership wants that team that's just, like, in the hunt every year, more than, like, a team going all in for 1 or 2 seasons to try to win the World Series. I think from their business perspective, the best way to continue growing the business is to just be in it.
Right. And one way they can be in it is this guy right here could be a big part of that. Keep on hearing about Moises Ballesteros being offensively ready, but not defensively. Is comparing him to Kyle Schwarber as a prospect reasonable? That's from Brian Deal. What do you think, Patrick?
I think it's not totally off base in terms of at this point, the Cubs do not expect Moises to be an everyday catcher. We've talked about this hope of maybe he could be a third catcher, DH. I don't know if they'd even consider first base or the outfield at this point, but if he could do some of those things and maybe pair up with a pitcher, whatever, that could be really valuable. I think the way they talk about him is similar to Schwarber, of just like, dude, this guy's gonna rake. I think that's kind of my main takeaway. What do you think?
Right. I talked to a scout about this recently, just to get some better idea, like, about what type of offensive profile he projects to be. And and what I came away from that conversation was feeling like this is more batting average than Schwarber. Not the what you'd say like on a 2080 scale. Schwarber's at like 70 power. This is probably like this is above average power still, especially as he continues to learn to like what to swing at and when. There was there was a slight uptick in strikeouts. So I asked this scout, can you dig into your system? Tell me are there any alarm bells going off when you look at that? Oh, he's facing more advanced pitching, and this is why it's happening. When he gets to the majors, it's going to spike even more. And when I say there was a slight spike, I'm saying this guy struck out at like a 13% rate for most of his career and then went up to 20 something percent, 21% at AAA. So, I mean, that's still really good. If he strikes out at 21% rate at the major league level, that's great. And it was a smaller sample size, of course, his AAA numbers. He said what was happening was he was chasing more against quality lefties. He's like, that's a wash. He's like, that's normal. He's like, you can't, that'd be nitpicking. And this is a scout for another team. So he's like, this is not something you should overreact to. Really quality offensive talent. If I'm comparing him to Schwarber, it's significantly offense over defense, but I don't think they're exactly the same when it comes to, I don't expect 40, 50 home run seasons here. But high batting average, quality at bats, power when he learns to really hit, like really what to swing at. I just think like this guy has, there's potential special offensive upside. And I think the Cubs are excited about him. There was a question about untouchable prospects that I didn't include because I thought it would be pushing time, but I can quickly say that I don't think he's untouchable, and I don't think there's any untouchable prospect, but he'd probably be soon after, like in the list that I would include with like Matt Shaw and maybe Cade Horton of like, they don't want to move these guys, and probably Cam Smith, right? Because they just drafted him. And I think he probably has just what I saw from 2.5 months and talking to scouts, like, oh, maybe this is their best prospect a year from now. But that's a year from now. We don't need to dive into that. I'm just saying, if I'm looking at the prospects, those are the guys that there's so many of them that maybe I miss someone, but I think that's right. Matt Shaw, Ballesteros, and Cade Horton would be the ones that it's like you'd have to be including a superstar or something. It'd have to be an insane trade that's not really on our radar right now. All right.
Oh, this is perfect for you from Chef Kevin Penner. What happened to the Cubs' air quotes pitching infrastructure and pitch lab? Weren't they about to become a juggernaut in pitching development a few years ago?
So okay. I think it's a fair question, like in the sense that like they're not winning enough. Okay. I think that's the bigger problem. When you're not winning enough, you're going to go back to like, I was told this and I'm going to complain about this. I'm angry about it. Listen, they're light years ahead of where they were a decade ago. Just light years. Yeah. There was like, I've written so much about the good and the bad of their pitching development over the past decade, and it was bad. They weren't developing anyone. Like the names are like, Rob Zastryzny, who's back. James Norwood, like these are the guys that were coming up and getting Michael Rucker, like not like guys that get a cup of coffee or maybe develop into decent relievers, but nothing impactful. Justin Steele is homegrown, and he made real changes underneath this pitching infrastructure that was spearheaded by Craig Breslow and is continuing under Jason Kanzler is now in charge of player development, right? They just made a big hire that everyone on the internet is freaking out about. Tyler Zombro. We'll have to dig into that and maybe get some information on him and how he's impacting player development. But I think he's impacting pitching all over the place. Tommy Hotovy gets a lot of credit in baseball circles and from pitchers for the impact that he creates. I would point to this. Okay, I think. You have Justin Steele. You have guys like Javier Assad. You have Jordan Wicks, Ben Brown, Hayden Wisniewski all got hurt last year, right? Or were ineffective in certain ways. Adbert Alzolay, homegrown, but got hurt last year. Porter Hodge, homegrown, late round draft pick. They've used some of these pitchers to make trades. Jackson Ferris, Ty Johnson to get Isaac Paredes, who apparently is impactful, like as far as prospect wise, value wise, and they drafted him late. So I think there's something to be said. Like, they've made real leaps, but remember this: who are the ones that stand out around the league? LA, Tampa Bay. How often are those guys injured? How often do we hear about pitching injuries? So these things go hand in hand. There's risk here. I don't know if Ben Brown is going to come back, be healthy, and be impactful, but he certainly looked very impactful. And the Cubs made real changes with him. He was developed by the Phillies. He came here, made some real changes, and is now, has the potential to be an impactful either starter or reliever. They've improved their pitching significantly. Just like I don't think it's a little bit. Their pitching development has changed significantly. It's not perfect. I don't know if there is an organization that's perfect. Even Cleveland didn't develop a ton of starters this season, but I think it's hard to deny that they've made real steps. I think it's perfectly fine for people to be upset about things just because the team isn't winning enough, and I think that leads to this. I think that's ultimately what happens when there's losing, when there's not enough winning. It leads to questions like this. And I'm not getting on Chef Kevin Penner here. I just think it's a perfectly fair question. I just think it's important to keep perspective here. And injuries are part of it all. And I didn't even mention Cade Horton, who they drafted, they identified, and they've helped, kind of clean some things up. I think we're going to be hearing about more things like that. I do think they're on the right path, and they have been, and we're seeing results. It's just completely different than what we covered 5, 6, 7 years ago.
One more quick thing beyond seeing those pitchers get healthy and take the next steps in their careers, I'm also curious to see what sort of impact Craig Counsell has in this space, particularly after how well the Brewers have performed, how they've taken guys who didn't really stick with the Cubs and all of a sudden they're beating the Cubs, things like that, how the relievers they target and acquire this offseason, how those young pitchers are deployed next season as outgetters. I think Counsell's fingerprints will be all over this.
I completely agree. I'm curious to see how the bullpen looks in April and May, right? Or what bullpen moves are made over the next couple months, and then how it looks when the season starts. Like, do we see significant differences in a positive way? All right, Patrick, that wraps it up for us. Our first YouTube video podcast. You guys get to stare at our beautiful faces. I had a friend. I was at a Friendsgiving this past weekend, and a friend was asking how the podcast was going, and I told him we're starting video, and he's like, who watches that? And I was like, sick Cubs fans, man. And you guys are the sickest of all Cubs fans. We appreciate you guys listening, watching, doing all that you do to support us. It is truly, we do truly do appreciate it. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on YouTube. Now that you're watching us, it helps us out a lot. Subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are covering the Cubs all winter long and beyond. All that good stuff. Sorry, my computer's acting wonky, so I lost track of what I was saying. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We appreciate it. Take care.